Oh, we're finally starting the show! Oh, that's crazy! Thank you very much! Oh my god! Oh, wow! Whoa, thank you! Oh, wow! That's incredible! Oh my god, thank you very much! I'm so excited to see you all here tonight. My name is Sasha. I will be performing for you tonight in English, obviously. But before we start, I will warm you up, as they say. I will prepare you for the show. Usually the warm-up that I do, it consists of 3 parts. The first part is where I'm telling you a little bit about the program, what to expect. Then I will share a couple of basic rules of stand-up with you that will help you to enjoy the show tonight, especially to those of you who are seeing stand-up for the first time. After that, we will do a little bit of crowd work. I know. I hate crowd work too, but unfortunately these days it's mandatory to do crowd work. If you're a comedian, you have to do it because otherwise they revoke your license of a comedian, and it's not my desire, it's the government. So I'm very sorry, we have to do it. And after the crowd work, we will finally get to the main part of the show with all the jokes. The whole show will last for about an hour and 10 minutes. It's not very long because I cannot speak English for longer than an hour and 10 minutes. And we're very lucky for that because, for example, whenever I'm performing in Russian, which is my mother tongue, that language is in fact so easy to me that I can perform for 2 or even 3 hours in a row. And no one is happy about that. So we're lucky that in English there is a natural restriction on how long I can perform, because after an hour and 10 minutes I just collapse on stage, and that's how you know that the show is finally over and you can go home. Okay, let me start with the first part. So basically what you need to know about this show is that every year I set a new ambitious artistic goal for myself. For example, last year my ambitious artistic goal was to learn how to express emotions on stage in English, because in Russian I'm very emotional. I wanted to learn the same in English. For example, the year before that, my artistic goal was to learn how to stand on stage for an hour in English as well. And this year, my artistic goal is to finally learn how to be relaxed on stage, because I have realized that I have been doing stand-up for 15 years already, and never ever in my life I felt relaxed on stage. I have always been very controlling on my shows, and the advantage is that my shows, they're very scripted, they're very strict, and the punchlines are very obvious, so you're laughing very hard, but there is no joy in your laughter. That's what I have realized. So this year I'm finally trying to bring joy into my shows, and also I'm trying to pick an artistic goal that matches my real life goal. It means that this year in real life I'm also trying to learn how to be relaxed, because last year I turned 31 and I realized that I had been stressed my whole life, and when I was younger I thought that if I worked hard enough, at some point my life would just naturally become more easier and relaxed. So I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked, and nothing changed for the better. In fact, the opposite happened, and my life just kept on getting more stressful and harder. And I realized that if I do not deliberately learn how to relax, I will just break at some point. So what I did last year was I tried to shift my focus from stress and work to the things that actually matter to me, such as friendship and romance. And what it means for the show tonight is that this show that you're about to see is gonna be way slower than my usual shows. There will be less yelling than usual, and also punchlines will be less obvious. So if you're not laughing tonight, it doesn't mean that I'm a bad comedian. It just means that I'm an experimentator. Try to look at it from that perspective. And also, most of my jokes this year, there will be about friendship and romance, as opposed to my usual shows that are mostly about politics, and that's it, mostly about politics. So also another important thing is that I do not actually speak English, so sometimes during the show I might stutter and I might forget words and entire sentences. That's very awkward. When it happens, I actively encourage you to yell out what you think I wanted to say, because that actually helps me to write my show. Now, let me share with you a couple of basic rules of stand-up that will help you tonight to enjoy the show. Usually I have just one request during the show, and it's especially relevant tonight when we're filming the show. Try not to talk during the show. I know. I just told you that I'm trying to be less controlling, but I'm not there yet, okay? So let's make a deal tonight. Let's meet each other halfway. You will try not to talk, and I will try not to call you out if you're talking, because usually I'm so controlling that if there are people talking, I'm calling them out immediately, and that's embarrassing for everyone. This year, since I'm learning how to be more relaxed on stage and how to accept reality as it is, I promise, if you're talking, I am not going to call you out, but I still want you to know that if you're talking and I'm not calling you out, it's not because what you're doing is correct. It is because I deliberately decided to exercise my resilience, and you're still ruining my life. I just want you to remember that every time you're talking. Also, there is another secret rule of stand-up that I will only share with you if that's necessary. You will have to discover it yourselves. You know, like in video games, sometimes there are secret locations, but don't worry, it's a beginner-friendly show. If you do not find the secret rule of stand-up yourselves, I will share it with you afterwards. So that's everything that you need to know. Now let's do a little bit of crowd work. The way I do crowd work in English is a bit weird because I'm not stupid. I know that even though the show is in English, most of my audience members are still Russian-speaking people, and I never do crowd work with them in English because it makes no sense. We do not speak this language, we do not understand each other, and we're just embarrassing ourselves in front of real Europeans. So what I usually do is I just talk to the people in the audience who do not speak Russian. So now I want to ask you to clap if you do not speak Russian. Please clap if you do not speak Russian. Okay, wow. I am so excited to see all 7 of you here tonight, and I want you to know that it is only thanks to you that this show makes sense. And I have to say that unfortunately it's not always like that. Sometimes I am performing in English, and unfortunately there are no non-Russian speakers in the audience, and I have to say those are very existential moments of my life. So I'm glad that you have showed up, and I think that I want to start with this person over here, the second row. Hello, what is your name? Andres, give a round of applause to Andres. Andres, thank you very much for coming. Andres, I know that crowd work is very stressful for both of us, especially because of these horrible reels on Instagram of comedians going on stage and attacking audience members with aggressive questions such as, what is your profession, right? And then they make fun of your profession. I want to comfort you and say that that's not what I do. And in fact, I think that I have found a way to make crowd work more comfortable. So what I usually do, instead of talking in this very stressful environment, I just put ourselves into a more familiar context where we already know how to communicate. So what I want you to imagine during our crowd work is a very simple scenario. It is as if I just came up to you at a bus stop and I'm trying to start a small talk, because I'm sure, especially in Berlin, that has happened to both of us sometimes in our lives. And also, if at any point you're feeling uncomfortable, you can stop it just by saying, "Oh, that's my bus," and we will stop the crowd work. I will know that it's not you, it's the bus. You had to get on the bus. Okay, so now I will start and you join, okay? I came up to you at a bus stop and I'm trying to start a small talk. Okay. Ooh, yeah. The weather is horrible these days. Am I right? And now you can reply. That's a great response. That's the best crowd work I have ever had so far. So now give me a couple of seconds to come up with a funny response myself. I'm not very good at crowd work, especially in English. It needs time usually. Okay, but I think I got it. Okay. So I say the weather is horrible. You say, and my funny response is, yes. By the way, what is your profession? I'm very sorry. Yeah, I panicked. That was the only option that I had on my mind. And you can reply to that now.
I'm a water researcher.
You're a water researcher. That's a wonderful answer. Okay, now give me a couple of seconds to think of something funny. Okay, I think I got it. I said, the weather is horrible. You say, I say, yeah, but what's your profession? I say, I'm a water researcher. So my final response is, I say, oh, that's my boss. Yeah, I'm very sorry. I'm too anxious during crowd work, so I think that it's actually enough crowd work for tonight, and unfortunately it's not that. Thank you very much. Wow, thank you everyone. Thank you. Thank you, I'm very pleased, and also I want to congratulate you because you were so quick to discover the secret rule of stand-up that I told you about just a second ago, and the secret rule of stand-up that you have just discovered now is please do not clap during the show. I know, I'm trying to be less controlling, but for some reason it interrupts the rhythm of the show. Just relax and laugh and enjoy the show. If it's not funny, try to wait for the next joke. But it has been so puzzling to me my whole life because it is only audiences where you have a lot of people from the post-Soviet countries that love to clap a lot. And I've been trying to understand what's the reason my whole life. And my theory is that since most of us come from the countries with the long history of totalitarianism, somehow we have this instinct in our blood. Whenever we see a person on stage with a microphone, we are somehow convinced that we have to clap as long as we can for our families to stay alive. But what I am suggesting tonight is so-called exposure therapy. You try not to clap, and you will see your families after the show. That's how you actually integrate into a new society. You change your usual patterns of behavior, and you see that life is actually pretty good. This show is also a little bit educational, by the way, so... Okay, I think that now we're ready to start the show, and I want to start with this observation about friendship that I think is fundamental for the understanding of this whole show. The thing is that my whole life it has been very hard for me to make friends because when I was a child, I was disabled, and I spent most of my childhood at hospitals, and every time I would go back to school after several more months at a hospital, it was hard for me to reconnect with my classmates because every time I felt like I missed yet another crucial stage of human development. And everyone felt so sorry for me. Everyone wanted to help me to make friends. And I remember when I was 11, my grandma came up to me once and she said, "Sasha, I think I know how to help you to make friends. You should read this book." And she gave me a book. And the book was called How to Make Friends. And the author was Dale Carnegie. Now, if you don't know who Dale Carnegie is, me neither. But apparently the guy had a lot of friends, and he even wrote a book about that. And to be fair, I really liked the book when I was a child. It had very solid advice. But unfortunately, the thing is, Dale Carnegie was an American psychologist in the 1930s, before World War II. And unfortunately, all his wonderful wonderful advice in the book only worked in that very specific context. And I remind you that I was a child in a small Russian town in the early 2000s. So now looking back at my childhood, I'm thinking that maybe perhaps the fact that I was following the advice from the book so strictly was the reason why I didn't have friends, because the children that I was trying to make friends with were just other low-life kids from this very small Russian town in the early 2000s, where we didn't really have any entertainment back in the days, because it was right after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Everything was in ruins. We didn't really have any modern infrastructure yet. No pizza places, no malls, no swimming pools, no bowling alleys, no bus stops, by the way. And the only entertainment that we had back in the days was this huge dark forest where everyone would go after school to drink alcohol energy drinks and listen to horrible Russian rap music and sniff glue and fist fight with each other and have sex and all of that at the same time. So those were the children that I was trying to make friends with, but unfortunately, because of the book that I read, the way I was trying to make friends with them, I would come up to them late at night in the forest and I would be like, "Hello, fellow kids! Happy to see you at this wonderful time of the day. Let me inform you that I'm really looking forward to making friends with you, and as recommended in the book, I wrote down all your birthdays to wish you happy birthday and successful business deals. Now, excuse me, I really need to get back to my beloved wife and family. We're going to church in the morning," and then I would leave and all the children would be like, "What the fuck? Get the fuck out of here, you dork! How come you're 11 years old and you already behave like a pedophile? It's impossible. I swear I saw this child on Epstein's files as a perpetrator somehow. I saw a photo of this child shaking hands with Bill Clinton. That's crazy." And you know, it breaks my heart because when I was a child, I thought that I couldn't make friends because I didn't have enough social experience. Now, when I'm 31, I have enough experience, but somehow my experience scares people away, and it breaks my heart because I really try not to trauma dump on people, but sometimes it feels as if people corner you and they do not leave you another option but to trauma dump. And it happened to me last year. I went to a bar with a group of friends, and all these people, they were American art students. Obviously, I really wanted to make friends with them because as a person who comes from a small Russian town from the early 2000s, obviously, Americans to me, they're like magic creatures from fairy tales. And actually, before I met those American art students, the only Americans I knew were Spider-Man and Mickey Mouse. So I was very excited to make friends with the real Americans. But unfortunately, I think that I blew it and I ruined the atmosphere at the bar because at some point, the American art students, they started playing a game. And the game they were playing, they were asking each other who had what kind of bread growing up. And turned out that all of them, they had fancy bread in their childhood. One of them said, "Us in California," that's by the way my impression of the Californian accent. I am sure it's incorrect, but you have paid for the tickets. I'm trying to give you all the genres of comedy possible. So one of them said, "Us in California, we had farm bread." And another one said, "And we had sourdough." And usually if I don't understand something in English, I Google that immediately. Even though that story happened last year, I still haven't Googled sourdough because just by the way it sounds, I know that when I see it, I will hate that someone had it as a child. So inevitably at some point it was my turn. They asked me, what about you, Sasha? What kind of bread did you have growing up? And God knows, I really didn't want to trauma dump on these poor people. I really wanted to make friends with them, but unfortunately they cornered me and they didn't leave me another option. They surrounded me and they were all looking at me like a pack of hungry hyenas, all asking me at the same time, what kind of bread did you have growing up? And because of the pressure, I started replying sooner than I was thinking, and I knew that we were facing a disaster because the bread I had as a child literally translates to English as grey bread. And I said it, grey bread, it was grey bread I had as a child, it was grey bread, and they were like, what the fuck? That cannot be a real title of bread, grey bread. What you're doing right now, Sasha, is what you fucking Eastern Europeans do every single fucking time. You're trying to seem cooler and darker than you really are. And I was like, no, it was really grey bread. And people used it in a positive way. You wake up in the morning and your mom was like, good morning, my love. I have made you breakfast already. It is your favorite. It is grey bread, and you're all happy because it's your favorite hot steaming loaf of grey bread. And they couldn't believe me. They asked me to show them pictures of grey bread online, and God knows I really didn't want to trauma dump on these poor people. I really wanted to make friends with them, but unfortunately for me, the only pictures of grey bread I found online were slices of grey bread lying on top of glasses of vodka, and they were like, what the fuck? Why are the slices lying on top of the glasses? And I was like, well, that's because someone died. And you know, just I scared them away. I couldn't make friends with them anymore. I trauma dumped on them accidentally, and it truly breaks my heart because sometimes I truly feel that people want to make friends with me, but unfortunately, I just cannot give them what they want from me. And that one is gonna be a bit harder to explain, but I hope you will understand what I'm talking about. Last year, I realized a weird thing at some point. Sometimes you would match with a person on a dating app, and then you would go on a date with this person. But then, during the date already, you would realize, and it's hard to explain, but I hope you will understand what I'm talking about anyways, because people never say it explicitly clear to your face. You can only guess based on their vibe. But sometimes I would realize during the date that this person doesn't actually want to date me anymore. And what they want from me now instead is they saw my profile on the dating app, and they saw all the labels that I put on myself, such as queer, non-binary, non-monogamous. And what they want from me now is not dating me. What they want from me now is they want me to become their stereotypical queer friend. You know what I mean? And I do not blame them for that. I totally understand. They already have a partner. They have a stable job. And I am the last missing piece in their European liberal dream. I totally understand that. We all want a stereotypical queer friend who says phrases like "slay, girl," or "dump this loser, queen," or "this dress slaps." We all want to have this friend, but unfortunately, I cannot give that type of queer to these people, not because I don't want to. I really want to be that friend for them, really badly, but unfortunately, because of my background and my experience and all my trauma, and how fucked in the head I am, unfortunately, the only type of queer that I can give is the crazy type of queer. It is the one who is like, neoliberalism destroyed the world, Margaret Thatcher was the beginning of it all, the only way to communism is if everyone becomes trans. And then I rip my clothes and I howl, oh, and I jump through the window, and I run on the rooftops, and they run up to the window, and they yell, but what about the dress? And I'm like, it slaps, unfortunately. That's the only type of queer that I can deliver, and you know, it truly breaks my heart because last year I was trying my best to make friends and to start a relationship, and nothing worked. And then I realized that instead of meeting new people, I needed to take a step back and analyze what mistakes I usually make. And I realized a lot about myself last year. For example, one thing I realized about my romantic life was that now, after all this analysis, I know 100% for sure, I'm confident that I am romantically attracted to people of all genders. That's true. I don't care about gender. But also, at the same time, I have to confess that I have never ever in my life dated a man. And I was trying to understand why, and I realized that the reason is actually pretty simple. It is only because of my body. You see, my body is very small and tiny and fragile, and most men, they're big and strong. So I just feel physically unsafe around most men, and it's very hard to feel attraction when you're feeling unsafe, right? And also, at the same time, all men remind me of my dad, which is also very unfortunate because I had a horrible relationship with my dad. We used to fight physically, and I even escaped my parents 15 years ago, and I cut all contact with them. That's a true story. And I find it hilarious because the biggest fear of my dad has always been for me to have sex with men. And in a weird way, he achieved his goal, you know what I mean? Because I indeed do not have sex with men, but not in the way he wanted me not to have sex with them. You know what I mean? It's not like I inherited his homophobic worldview and now I hate gay people too. It's more like I cannot have sex with men because, you know, they are so big and strong and dangerous. And they all remind me of my dad. You know, it's just weird. And it bothered me so much that I even decided to discuss that with my therapist because what I hated was the feeling that it wasn't my choice, you know? It felt more like my life developed in a way that now I cannot have sex with men. It's as if I couldn't eat potato. But not because I don't like potato, but because every single potato reminds me of my dad. You know, you want to figure it out. And I discussed that with my therapist. And what my therapist told me made me actually feel crazy because my therapist said, okay, Sasha, it's gonna sound stupid, but that's a serious psychological recommendation. If you really want to explore this part of your sexuality, if you really want to try to have sex with men, I highly recommend you, whenever you see a man, not necessarily romantically, just in any context, try to actively remind yourself in your head that this man is not your father. And you know, yeah, it's one of the moments of your life when you realize that you're not okay, when you have to look at every single man that you see and actively tell yourself, that's not my dad, by the way, that's literally a different person. And you know how people sometimes they have this kink during sex for their partner to say, I'm your daddy, and then you go, yes, slap me, fuck me harder, daddy. So my kink is basically the opposite. It is for my partner to say, I'm not your dad, and then I go, yes, slap me, fuck me harder if you're not my dad, because if you are, I am completely unattracted to you. And you know, this whole parents sex related association thing is so puzzling to me. I just cannot understand how come I cannot have sex with men because all men remind me of my dad. Whereas at the same time, the only reason I have sex with women is, I don't want to finish that sentence, by the way, but actually, what I'm trying to say is that's why I love dating non-binary people, because none of my relatives are non-binary, and I just do not get weird associations, you know. Whenever I see a non-binary person, I'm just thinking to myself, wow, I'm thinking, they are so hot, I'm thinking, so sexy, I'm thinking, with their pink hair, I'm thinking, with their sweater, I'm thinking, they're just like my grandma, you know, so it's also a bit complicated, and I knew that I needed to keep analyzing, and all this analysis last year led to a serious decision that was very hard to make, but I knew that I needed to make it at some point of my life. So last year, after almost 7 years of being principally non-monogamous, I finally realized that it was finally time to quit non-monogamy and to move on, or rather move back to monogamy, because I got disappointed, you know, not in the idea of non-monogamy, but in the people that I met along the way. And I know that it's a rude thing to say, but that's how I feel, and apparently these days you're allowed to say whatever you want if you start with "that's how I feel." Yes, I am even sure that even if Donald Trump came out and instead of saying "I will annex Greenland," he just said "I feel that I will annex Greenland," everyone would be like, "That's his feelings. You have to respect that. Thank you for sharing that with us, Donald. We hope we can start a discussion from that point." And he would be like, "No, I'm still doing that anyways." So what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to non-monogamy, I feel that I was the only person in the world who did it right, but that's just my feeling, okay? So no offense. And still, even though I quit non-monogamy, I'm still trying to use my status as a public speaker to challenge harmful stereotypes about non-monogamy. For example, there is this one harmful stereotype about non-monogamy, that non-monogamy is for radicals. It is radical. It is for crazy radicals. And you know, I get where it comes from, because even the books that we had in non-monogamy had radical titles, such as, for example, Abolish the Family. That one sounds quite radical, I admit. Or another book, Radical Intimacy. That one even has the word radical in the title. It gives us out immediately. But you can call me crazy, do what you want, but I'm actually thinking that it's actually monogamous people who are radical. Yeah, you heard me right. Just think about that. They only date one person at a time. That seems quite radical to me. Also, they say it's either me or no one. That's very radical of them. Also, when you break up with a monogamous person, they block you on every social media. And by the way, non-monogamous people, they never block each other, because you cannot block a person with whom you're running a book club, right? Why would you do that? That's gonna ruin the whole community. They have flags for the demonstration. Unblock them, get the flags, block them again. Are you stupid or what? So I was actively analyzing my mistakes, and I realized last year that all my problems, they all come down to inconfidence, because they all say that you only need the confidence to put yourself out there, do not give up, it's a numbers game, you will find friends, you will find the relationship, you just need the confidence. And for that reason, I envy confident people. I have this friend of a friend, and she is in fact so confident that she starts every argument by saying, "Listen, here is what is gonna happen." And then she destroys her opponent. It's fucking crazy. Like recently, her spa appointment was canceled, and they still wanted her to pay for the appointment. And you know what? She called them on the phone. That's how confident she is in the first place. And she said, "Listen, here is what is gonna happen. I'm not gonna pay you anything. In fact, it's gonna be you who's gonna pay me for canceling my appointment. More than that, you're gonna offer me a free spa appointment instead. And you know what? They did. That's crazy. That's how confident she is. And my problem is not even that I'm confident. It is even worse because my problem is that sometimes, for some reason, I become delusional enough to start believing that I am very confident, and then I get into a conflict, but then all of a sudden, in the middle of the conflict already, I realize that I actually have never been confident in the first place, and I end up being fucking humiliated. So, in my case, I would just call them and I would be like, hey, listen, you fuckers, yeah, write it down, losers. Here is what is gonna fucking happen. I will pay everything you want me to pay, and yeah, bye, suckers. And I finish the call, and I'm like, yeah, that's how you fucking talk to them, yeah. And my friends are like, wow, Sasha, congrats, you're making such great progress. This time, you didn't even cry before the call like last time, that's crazy. I just cannot understand how you can be confident when you're a migrant, right? Because it's already hard to be confident in your native language, but when you're a migrant and you're speaking your second or your third or even further languages, it's almost impossible to keep the confidence. And I feel very insecure whenever I get to speak English. And whenever I say it, people come up to me after shows and they say, Sasha, your English is great. You should stop criticizing your English. And whenever people are saying it, what they do not realize is that this, what you're watching right now, it's a show. It's a program that I have been working on for almost a year already. And before I went on the road with this show, I tested all these jokes dozens of times on open mics, and now I'm finally on tour, and this show is actually the 51st show of the tour, and I will have 53 shows in total. And you know what it means? It means that I do pretty much the same program over and over again, night after night, for almost 90 days in a row. And maybe my English is not perfect, but I'm not stupid. I just have enough time to ask ChatGPT what words to say and how to pronounce them, and actually my real level of English is way worse than that. And whenever people are complimenting my English after shows, they immediately realize that they're wrong. Because I am literally unable to respond to the compliment. They're like, your English is great. And I'm like, oh, that's my boss. And I'm trying to distract them somehow. And seriously, I have only 3 ways to respond to the compliment. 2 of them I know from Netflix. 1 I learned back from school. So I either say, it means the world to me. Or I say, highly appreciated. Or if I'm especially tired, I just say, thank you. But that's how insecure I am about my English. My biggest problem is the articles. Because if you didn't know that, in the Russian language, there are no articles at all. The concept of articles just doesn't exist in Russian. So my small, stupid Russian brain cannot comprehend the concept of the language with articles. And I completely gave up on trying to understand it already. I just memorize how people use them, and I try to repeat after them. That's how bad it is. Every time I'm writing an announcement for a show in English, I first send it to ChatGPT to check it for mistakes, and what recently happened made me so furious, because I wrote an announcement for a show in English, and I wrote the door 7, the start 8, because that's how I have been taught my whole life. It's this very door, it's this very start, and I sent it to ChatGPT, and what ChatGPT did blew my mind, because ChatGPT removed the articles. So now it was door 7, start 8. And I asked ChatGPT, but shouldn't you use the articles? And ChatGPT said, yes, you're totally correct. But sometimes you're actually allowed to remove the articles if that sounds better. And that made me so furious because not only it means that English language knows that you're allowed to remove the articles, but also it knows that it sounds way fucking better. So I have no idea why do we keep on doing that to ourselves. Of course I agree that it sounds better. You know how else it sounds better? When it's in Cyrillic fucking letters. That way it sounds perfect to my ears. Cyrillic letters, no articles. I love Bulgarian language. So basically, in the summer, when I was preparing this show, I shared this observation with a British friend of mine who also lives in Berlin. She's a comedian. We write jokes with her from time to time. And obviously, as a native speaker of English, she has the opposite problem and she struggles to understand the concept of the language with no articles at all. And she asked me, but tell me, Sasha, how? I just do not understand. If you do not have articles in Russian at all, tell me, how do you even communicate? Because let's consider a very simple theoretical scenario. Let's say you are with a group of Russian-speaking friends, and let's say you're stuck in front of several doors, which is already an insane situation that has literally never happened to anyone, because if you have ever been a human for longer than, let's say, 15 minutes, you might have noticed already that usually you face just one fucking door, and whenever I hear it, I wonder if that's the insane type of shit English language was designed for. Completely nonsensical, unrealistic situations from the Greek mythology, when you're trapped in a magic maze, chased by the Minotaur, somehow with a group of Russian-speaking friends. So she said, let's say you're in front of several doors with a group of Russian-speaking friends. Tell me how, if you do not have articles in Russian, how will you let your friends know through what door you want them to enter? And I was like, dude, just use your fucking hands. That's how you do it. You point at the door and you say, friends, let's go through door. And guess what? Everyone understands what you're talking about. No one is like, excuse me, can I ask a question real quick? Do you mean that door by any chance that you're pointing at right now with your hand? Or maybe, if you have ever watched this old King Kong movie from the 1930s, the black and white one, you might remember that at the end of the movie, there was a scene when King Kong was climbing on top of the Empire State Building. And if you were watching it closely enough, you could actually notice that there was a tiny window in the tower. And in that window, there was actually a man working at the desk. By the way, that man was Dale Carnegie, writing his book on how to make friends. I highly recommend you to read that one. And actually, behind that man, there was a door. Do you mean that door by any chance? Or maybe the one that you're pointing at right now with your fucking hand? And you know, I just got so mad. And then I remembered that I was learning how to be more relaxed, and I took time to exhale and to calm myself down, and I chilled out. And eventually, I had to admit that in that regard, English is way more inclusive than Russian, because apparently in the Russian language, it is a very hard time for people with no hands, because, you know, if they're stuck in front of several doors, they will never get out of this situation. And I'm sorry, I need the mic stand for the next joke, because I need to take a special pose for the next joke that symbolizes the culmination of the show, where all the plot lines are finally coming together in the next joke. So, all last year, I was actually trying to analyze the mistakes that I make in my social and romantic life. And I was trying to overcome the insecurity about the language that I had. And all that led to the fact that last year, for the first time in my life, I started a monogamous relationship with an English-speaking person. and I was very happy in the relationship. Although there was one major problem that I didn't see coming, and when I name the problem, you will think that it's stupid, and you will think, how could you not foresee it in advance? But for some reason, I could not predict that it would become a problem. So my biggest and my only problem in the relationship in English was whenever you wake up together in the morning and you just open your eyes and you already have to speak fucking English fucking already, and I just felt so conflicted because I really loved this person and I was happy to wake up together, but also at the same time, this is my fucking bed. You know what I mean? It is supposed to be the safest place in the world for me, and here I am at 6 in the morning because people have jobs in my own fucking bed, and I wake up and I open my eyes and I hear "Good morning, my love," which is the best phrase to hear in the world, and still I'm thinking, блять, it's fucking impossible. Am I supposed to speak English already? And you know, when I was a child, we had this a very strict Soviet teacher of English at school that always used to say, and remember children, you should learn English so perfectly that you should be able to speak English even if you wake up in the middle of the night. And I remember that as children we were thinking, you're a crazy fucking bitch. Why would we ever need to do that? Where? In the forest? No one speaks fucking English in the forest except for this 11-year-old pedophile that looks and behaves like an American psychologist from the 1930s. You know, the one from King Kong. So, yeah, you know, sometimes you have to admit that you were wrong, and when I was a child I was convinced that she was crazy, and now after all these years I realized that somehow that woman was the only person in my life who somehow already in the early 2000s saw the war coming, you know, and she was already like, children, I gotta be honest with you. I don't really like this new Putin guy, to be fair. So, you kids, you better learn languages already, because who knows what's gonna happen in 20 years. Call me crazy, I know you do already, but I'm just guessing. It's a wild guess. Who knows, maybe in 20 years one of you will become, I don't know, a stand-up comedian, and you will be performing in English in, I don't know, I'm just guessing, Berlin of all places, for a room of approximately 60 Russian-speaking people and about 10 friends or romantic partners of theirs. I'm just guessing. Call me crazy. It's a wild guess. Yeah, so unfortunately, sometimes you have to admit that you were wrong, and actually another situation recently happened that made me reconsider my previous preconceptions about life. I'm so embarrassed to say it, but what happened was I was with a group of Russian-speaking friends, and we went to IKEA to buy a door for one of the friends, and we were just stuck there for hours in front of several doors because, you know, we couldn't pick a door because we do not have articles in the language, and the only reason why we got out was because one of us switched to English eventually, and we could finally use the articles. So that joke used to be the final joke of the main part of the show, and after that joke I used to get to the closing part of the show, where I would thank you for coming, and then I would shortly advertise my merch, and then I would get to the short closing joke about friendship. But recently, when I was on the road already, I suddenly faced the necessity to rewrite the ending of the show because that show, it was just a show about friendship and romance that used to end at this very light-hearted, upbringing, hopeful, even naive joke about my new wonderful relationship in English. But when I was on the road already, I was actually in Helsinki. My partner called me on the phone and broke up with me. Can you imagine? I was so heartbroken, and I still am. It was so out of the blue because I felt happy in the relationship, and I was convinced that she was happy too. But also, all this time, I've been thinking, why in Helsinki, of all places? You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, I love the Nordic countries. But the reason I love the Nordic countries is because the climate there reminds me of home in the worst possible way. You know, it's all gray and dark and cold. It's not raining, it's not snowing, but the air is so humid that the tiny particles of ice are piercing through your face, and that's the worst place to be broken up with. And I was thinking, why could you not break up with me when I was, let's say, in Paris, for example? So I would be walking down the canal with a croissant in one hand and a glass of wine in the other, thinking, life, so unfair to me. À Paris, and then I just sing the song. But don't worry about me, I'm an adult, I know how to deal with the breakup. I immediately asked my therapist for an emergency session, and among the other recommendations, my therapist suggested that it helps to reconnect with your body when you're that emotionally devastated. If you go outside on a walk, and I was like, I'm not sure that it's a good idea. If you ever want to see me alive again, take this recommendation back, you know. So I feel so weird because as a person I feel heartbroken, but weirdly as a comedian I think that the breakup improved the show because yeah, it used to be just a naive show about friendship and romance, but now it feels more layered and realistic and grounded, and it's not only about the show, it's not only a show about friendship and romance anymore, it's also a show about overcoming grief and regaining hope and the ability to dream again, and about regaining trust in people. And also it feels so mystical because there was a joke that I really liked in the show, but I edited it out at some point because it didn't fit the idea of the show. But after the breakup, somehow it fits the show again, and I'm very excited to share this joke with you because it's the only educational joke of the show, and that's a very sensitive topic to me because my whole life I have had this complex of being undereducated, and I don't know why, but somehow people that I usually date, they're very educated, and it's not that I choose them on purpose, you know, it's not like I hang out in front of a research center and I'm just waiting for people to come out and then I'm like, hey, this dress slaps. It's not, you know, I just start dating a person and then I figure that they're very educated. For example, I don't know why, but for some reason most of my exes, they were big fans of ballet. Ballet means ballet. If you didn't know that, I'm very sorry, but for some reason that's the only moment of the show in every city where I literally see people turning to each other and whispering, what's ballet? And then I see your friends replying, it's ballet. And it feels so crazy to me because unlike all the other words in the show, that one is literally the same fucking word. It's just pronounced in a stupid way. So I'm very sorry for embarrassing you like that, but otherwise you will not understand the next 5 minutes of the show. So most of my exes, they were big fans of ballet, and they used to bring me to a lot of ballet, and now I'm going to tell you about my favorite ballet that I have ever seen. It's called Giselle. It's a wonderful ballet about the 15th century, and I find the plot of Giselle fascinating and educational. It consists of 2 acts, and the first act of Giselle starts with this aristocrat who wants to escape his aristocratic family and start a new life, and he secretly moves to a village, and he hides his aristocratic clothes in the basement, and he dresses as a peasant, and he starts a new life because apparently that's how easy it was to start a new life in the 15th century. You just change your clothes. And now you belong to a completely different social class. And all the other villagers are like, well, well, well. Look who we have here. Luckily for you, we cannot count at the village, so we will never know if it was 15 or 16 of us in the first place. I guess you can stay. And then he falls in love with a local girl. They start a wonderful romance. It's so beautiful. She gets pregnant at some point. Unfortunately, it's at this very moment when his aristocratic family finally finds him in the village, and they force him to go back to the palace, and the girl is left by herself, and she's so heartbroken that she loses her mind, she loses her child, and she dies. And that's how the first act of Giselle ends. And the only reason I know all of that is because my ex explained it to me in the break, because otherwise you cannot understand. They're just jumping and dancing, and it's so lovely and beautiful, and then she fucking dies, and you have to drink champagne for the next 15 minutes. And it's actually the second act of Giselle that I find educational, because in the second act, it is now her ghost, and her ghost is now at the swamp dancing with the other ghosts of the other, presumably dead girls from the village. And can you imagine, this fucking guy finds her ghost at the swamp and forces her ghost to fucking dance with him. Can you imagine the audacity? Can you imagine being a girl in a village in the 15th century and you fall in love with a guy because you cannot count, and then you realize that he is incredibly rich, but you cannot live happily ever after together because he is taken away from you. You lose your mind, you lose your child, you die, you become a ghost, and you're thinking, at last, I can just vibe with my friends at the swamp now. And then in the distance, you see the fucking tight pants and the huge dick jumping towards you. And you're like, dude, that's fucking ridiculous. That's fucking, I'm not gonna date you anymore. Are you fucking crazy? You remind me of my dad. Yeah, I just wanted to connect it with the rest of the show. And I find this ballet educational because I think that this ballet teaches us that somehow, no matter how heartbroken we are, the images of our exes will haunt us even after we die. And if you felt invested in the build-up of this joke and now you're underwhelmed by the punchline, that's literally how ballet works, by the way. It's so wonderful and beautiful, and then it just fucking ends. And you're like, why in Helsinki? So now I would like to get to the closing part, and I want to start by thanking you, because that's what I do at the end of every show, because I really want you to know how grateful I am to see you all here tonight, because I don't want you to think that I am one of them arrogant comedians who take everything for granted. And if anything, I totally clearly understand what big privilege it is to have you in my life and to be able to perform for you every year, even despite the fact that I am actively trying to escape you to the other language. I really appreciate your loyalty, because, you know, at this point, I already understand how much harder it is to be an international comedian than how it was when I used to be just a regular Russian-speaking comedian in Russia, you know, because the competition for the international comedians is fucking ridiculous. It's unbearable, because the worst case of competition that I could possibly encounter when I was just a regular Russian-speaking comedian in Russia was when I, let's say, go to a tiny godforsaken town in Siberia, and the owner of the venue runs up to me in panic, and he is like, "Oh, I hope you have sold enough tickets tonight, because unfortunately for you, there is another comedian performing in this very town, this very night, at the same time with you. So I hope your audiences do not overlap." So yeah, that was the worst case of competition I could possibly experience in the past. Just another fucking loser performing in Siberia. And even that somehow never affected me, because for some reason my audience doesn't overlap with any other audience, because somehow I am assuming that my audience are the people who hate stand-up. And I know that because people come up to me after shows oftentimes and they tell me, "You know what? I hate stand-up, but I really enjoyed your show." Or sometimes they say, "I hate stand-up," and they leave. So I know that it's mostly people who hate stand-up. But now, when I'm an international comedian, the competition is fucking unbearable. I went to Milan in Italy recently, and I sold 2 times less tickets there than last year. And the owner of the venue told me, "I'm very sorry that you didn't sell enough tickets tonight. I think it's because we have the Olympic Games that week." And I was like, that's insane. I cannot compete with the Olympic fucking Games. It's crazy. The competition is so fucking tougher. It reminds me of a show that I did in Berlin a while ago. I got to the venue, and the owner of the venue told me, "I'm sorry you didn't sell enough tickets tonight. I think it's because the Berlin Wall has just collapsed." And I was like, that's fucking crazy. I cannot compete with the historic events, you know? It's just fucking insane. It reminds me of a show that I did in Jerusalem once. I remember I got to the castle, and the owner of the Roman guard, he said, "I'm sorry you didn't sell enough rocks for your preach. I think it's because that guy just resurrected himself." And I was like, that's fucking crazy. I cannot compete with the biblical events. So, and of course, I am especially grateful to the 7 non-Russian speakers tonight. And I hope that you have enjoyed the show, and I hope that next year you will bring more friends and family members of yours. And I hope that at some point there will be so many of you that we will finally be able to replace them, if you know what I'm talking about. And I hope that them didn't understand whom I was talking about. And in no way I'm saying that I want that to happen. But the biggest compliment to me from the non-Russian speakers tonight will be, if I'm not saying that I want that to happen, but it will be the biggest compliment to me if next year you break up with your Russian-speaking partner. I'm not saying that I want that, but it will be the biggest compliment if you break up with them and you still come to my show. And your Russian-speaking ex is like, "What the fuck?" And you're like, "What? Am I not allowed to see my favorite comedian now?" So, now I would like to shortly advertise my merch. I'm so excited because it's the first year of my career when I finally have merch. It's a bunch of comics and stickers and postcards that I drew myself. I have to say it because sometimes people come up to me after shows and they ask me, "Did you draw it yourself?" And I'm like, "Of course I did. Why would I just sell random comics and stickers on my shows?" For some reason, people are thinking that I'm just selling stuff on my shows. They're like, okay, comics and stickers are great, but do you have these helicopters that you launch like that today? Or maybe you have this tiny robots that walk like that? So it's only comics and stickers and postcards that I drew myself. So I want to start with this. Actually, it's my first comic that I... Guys, I know that it looks miserable when you come to a comedy show and then in the middle of the show, the comedian is advertising items to sell after the show. But you know what? In this economy, I just cannot allow myself to just be a comedian anymore. I have to combine it now with being a traveling salesman. So I know that this year it's all silly and stupid. It's just a bunch of comics and stickers and postcards. But I promise that next year I will upgrade my assortment and I will add something more useful like vacuum cleaners and toasters. So you might bring something useful home. Honey, I'm home. Oh, honey, how was the show? The show was not good, but look what I have brought. It's a new vacuum cleaner, and the comedian signed it for us. She said she assembled it herself. So I want to start with this first comic that I drew in 2021. Still back home, and that one is about repression. It's hilarious. I highly recommend you to read that one also. I have this one, second comic. It is about how my rabbits were abducted by aliens. I had rabbits back home, and I used to bring them to a hospital a lot. They were so scared. I was convinced they were thinking they were abducted by aliens. And you can see that the cover is actually inside. Yes, it's not a mistake. I just wanted it to look like a movie that starts with a scene and then the title appears. So it's very smart. Yeah. So also I have this collection of smaller comics. It's called 4-in-1. So it's a good deal, you know. It's just you buy one, you get 4. That's crazy. So I have this postcard. You can see that it's both black and white and white and black. It was very hard to achieve this effect, and for that reason, it costs €1, you know. So yeah, you have to value your craft. And the last position are the stickers. Yes, I repeat, it's the stickers, not temporary tattoos. I have to say it because there was once an audience member who bought it for her child, and then later that night she sent me a text on Instagram. Oh, so those are stickers, not temporary tattoos. And then she sent me a picture of her child being covered with the stickers. I was like, you just do not remove the stickers. Now I will get to the closing joke of the show. It's going to be a short joke about friendship. But first I will get a sip of water. Because I want to be concentrated during the joke. And also, one last thing. It's not planned. It's not part of the show, but so now you will witness my actual level of English, and I hope you will understand what I'm trying to say. But I want to apologize because sometimes it happens that we overbook a show, and that's what has happened tonight, and we had to put some extra chairs, and I imagine that there are people in the audience who have not been feeling comfortable the whole show, and I want to thank you for your patience. And also, I see that there is a person over there who didn't see the show at all. So please be kind to this person and tell them about what you saw, so we can somehow compensate for the lack of visual part. And also, you can come up to me after the show and I can return you the money for the ticket. And also, if there are people who are feeling uncomfortable with their chairs, you can also do that. But not you, okay? Not you. Okay. let's agree that if you have a back on your chair, you cannot ask for money, okay? But these people here, they can, and everyone over there on uncomfortable seats. Okay, I'm very sorry, but I'm very grateful that you went. Please do not talk, okay? I only told about the money, not about talking, okay? It's still banned on the show. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the show. Now I will tell the closing joke of the show. I need to free up some space because it's a very physical joke. So, this last joke is gonna be about my current friends that I actually have. You see, despite all my complaints, I have a bunch of friends currently, but I'm still looking for new friends because the thing is, I am tired of my current friends, to be fair, because all my current friends, they're also migrants just like me. And you know how it goes with the migrants. Whenever you complain about life, they say, yeah, I get it. But you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking it only makes us stronger. That's what they tell you every time. I'm so tired of it because, you know, when I just immigrated 4 years ago, it used to inspire me whenever I heard it only makes us stronger. But now, after 4 years of being a migrant, whenever I hear it only makes us stronger, I'm thinking, you know what? I think I'm strong enough already. I don't think that I am interested in getting any much stronger. I mean, why? For what? Am I getting ready for the Olympics or what? How much stronger am I supposed to become? I am already paying taxes in Germany and suing my landlord at the same time. I already feel more adult than my mom ever was. You know what? I am totally satisfied with my current level of strength. You know what? I am even satisfied with how the Wikipedia page about me will look like even if I stop getting any challenge in life right now. If I open the Wikipedia page about me and it goes like, and she was born in Magadan in the 90s. In the far northeast of Russia, in an abusive family, and she was disabled as a child, and still she wanted to become a comedian, but guess what? No one knew what stand-up was back in the days in Russia, but somehow she still succeeded despite all the censorship and all the authoritarianism, but then the war started and she immigrated, and as soon as she settled a little bit, she came out as non-binary and she lost all her audience that she had before, and in a desperate attempt to attract a newer, more progressive audience, she switched to English and she lost even more audience than she did before, but somehow after 2026 it was okay. And nothing else ever happened to her anymore, and she died at 85, and she didn't get any more challenge for the last 54 years of her life, and actually her biggest problem was when she wakes up and she has to speak fucking English fucking already. Thank you very much. That was my last joke. I hope you've enjoyed the show. See you next time. Bye.